Alright, so I got my notes. Alright, pulse feels okay. Not tired. Took my meds. Drink plenty of water. Okay, I think I'm good to do season 5 now. What? Okay. You're new, so I'll explain it to you. Last time I did this, season 4, things got a little weird. Like, and I know it's gonna sound crazy, but hey, I'm paying you, so whatever. I kind of became the first Doctor, in a sense. Like, more literal than figurative at this point, but whatever. And on that day, I wasn't feeling so well, but now I'm feeling perfectly fine, you know, breathing good, not sick, and hopefully nothing crazy is going to happen this time, right? God, I hope so. Let's roll the title card. We'll crank this out really quick, and then we'll see what happens. Whew, boy. Welcome to the arc synopsis. Basically, this season covered 7 different story arcs. The first being the Tomb of the Cybermen. The Doctor and crew end up somewhere in the mountains, and they run into an archaeological expedition who have found a mysterious tomb. Upon examination and exploration of the tomb, they find out that the Cybermen are housed inside. And for those of you who may remember, the Cybermen are very bad characters. They're up there in bad guy status alongside Daleks at this point. I know they're more modern bad guys that also are noteworthy, but we're not there yet. But, yeah, it's interesting. And obviously it has the parallel of dealing with, like, oh, I don't know, the Mummy. You know, Boris Karloff in the 1930s, I believe. So, yeah, that starts things off. I really enjoyed the arc. You know, it had some good puzzles, some good personal drama. You know, who's really working with us, people working toward their own ends, etc. Next up, we have the Abominable Snowmen. Again, finding themselves in the mountains, the crew, the Doctor plans to go to a nearby monastery. Apparently he has some history with this place, because he has a sacred bell that he had obtained roughly 200 years ago. Unfortunately, on his journey to the monastery, he runs into another character, a gentleman known as Mr. Travers, who has concerns that the Doctor may have hurt his companion. And, yeah... We learned that, I guess, the Abominable Snowman, aka the Yeti, has been attacking people up in the mountains, and the monks and this Mr. Travers fellow are very concerned about that. And it leads to the introduction of a potentially interesting, recurring villain known as the Great Intelligence. I don't know, I thought it was an interesting arc. Like, I don't know, not really too entertaining though, so I don't know. I'll get on it later. Next we have the Ice Warriors. Again, the Doctor and crew find themselves in a mountainous area. Kind of weird how mountains seem to be very prevalent this season, but they find themselves, I believe, somewhere near Antarctica, near an outpost used to help maintain the world climate through technology. It's hard to remember all this stuff, but unfortunately this expedition has also found some frozen creature within the ice. They take it into thought and analyze it, and unfortunately it's a hostile being known as an Ice Warrior. Basically, I guess he was part of a small group that came from Mars and now wishes to go back to Mars. However, without any real technology to help him out, that's kind of a problem. And, well, seeing that we have technology, kind of wants to take it for himself, and he has a little help. Overall, I felt like the Ice Warriors were very meh bad guys, but some of the background drama was interesting. Do you trust your gut instinct versus pure logic, man versus science, and just a few other themes that were interesting. But again, I'll talk about what arcs are good and interesting later on in the video. Next up, we have The Enemy of the World. Now, this was an interesting arc, in that Patrick Troughton plays both the Doctor and a villainous character known as Salamander. Now, they did this earlier in the series, in season 3, I believe. Yeah, season 3, with the Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. Basically, Hartnell resembled a character from that time period, And it's just cool seeing Hartnell play both the Doctor and this other character. They're two very different people, different accents, and, get some character growth for Jamie and Victoria as well this season. In that they kind of have to become spies and learn what they can about the Salamander fellow. And I'm realizing now I didn't really go into what's going on here, so let me back up to that. So the major story is with the Salamander fellow. He's made some great technology that has helped to combat the world hunger crisis. Unfortunately, there are some concerns that he is moving towards becoming a world dictator, because of his intellect and his abuse of power, and a lot of his detractors seem to meet bad fates, being turned into jail, being killed, etc. So it's up to the Doctor to pose as Salamander, learn what he can about his organization, and determine, is he such a bad guy? And it's interesting. I really enjoyed the arc. Definitely worth talking about. Next up, we have The Web of Fear. Now, really quick, I want to establish that this is kind of a companion arc to The Abominable Snowmen, in that we have the Great Intelligence and the Yetis return. However, if you skip The Abominable Snowmen and see this, you're not really missing much. So, what is the story here? The story is that the TARDIS, is traveling along normally for the TARDIS, except that it seems to get caught up in some weird web out in space. Through some technical work done by the Doctor and the crew, they are able to eventually escape, but then find themselves in the underground subways of London. They depart the TARDIS, they go out and explore, but come across the webbing again, and some rather unsavory characters. The Yetis, and a group of military soldiers working to combat, the webbing and the Yetis and all this. And one interesting character, a Lieutenant Colonel Lethbridge Stewart. I don't know as much about him now, but I have heard he is a very prevalent character later on, throughout the classic era. Honestly, all the way up to season 26, which I think is the last season. So, I made a note of that. But, yeah, it's an interesting arc. It has some good stuff. I enjoyed it. Going down to the next. Fury from the Deep. The Doctor and crew find themselves near the North Sea. And they come across some strange sea foam, and going near some pipes for a rig that I guess is supposed to pull gas from the Earth's crust, they hear some strange noises. And this is where they introduce the sonic screwdriver, again, in a small role. Basically, they're near the pipes, and the Doctor's like, oh, that's strange. I better examine this, and pulls out a sonic screwdriver, checks it out. So, not that big a deal, but sonic screwdriver, it's a big thing later on. Had to establish it. Had to make note of it being here. And second, this is, where the 200 episodes occurred. So, that's cool. Anyway, they find the strange sea foam, but also come across some strange seaweed that seems to be affecting different rig workers. And mind control is something else that comes up. Again, that's a pretty big thing that happens this season. A lot of things have mind control. The Cybermen, the Great Intelligence. So, yeah. I thought it was an interesting arc, and this unfortunately also marked the departure of Victoria. Basically, traveling with the Doctor and Jamie seemed pretty dangerous, so I don't entirely blame her for saying, I love you guys. I'd rather not get killed because I'm hanging out with you guys. And that leads us to the final arc, The Wheel in Space. This arc, I liked in the beginning, and I liked some of the end of it, but it does drag a bit in the middle, in my opinion. The Doctor and Jamie, the only two TARDIS members now, have to get off of the TARDIS because there is some strange malfunction going on. And they find themselves on an abandoned rocket ship. We later learn that this was a supply ship that had drifted very, very, very far off course. And we also learn that the Doctor and Jamie aren't the only two stowaways on this ship. It would seem that the Cybermen are up to their old tricks again, trying to get to the Earth to steal whatever materials and minerals and such that they can because, well, they have to rebuild their army. Because if you remember the 10th planet, Mondus blew up. That was their home world. And there aren't a lot of them left. And this also brings us the newest character, Zoe. And just a quick bit of spoilery stuff for this. In the very end, they're about to take off. The Doctor uses some technology to make Zoe more aware of the dangers that they will face. Basically taking a little, a headpiece and working with a monitor shows her the Daleks. That was a cool bit of potential foreshadowing, while also presenting the danger to her that, hey, this isn't a pleasure cruise. Like, there are some serious things and you could get hurt here. And so, with that out of the way, let's talk about the arcs that I thought were noteworthy. Alright, so let's talk about the interesting arcs. I had 3 that I found noteworthy. Tomb of the Cybermen, Web of Fear, and Enemy of the World. Tomb of the Cybermen continues the story of the Cybermen, obviously, but also introduces a new villainous character known as the Cybermats. Basically small mechanical rodent-sized things that attack and can kill people with lasers and different tech. See, also sets the tone for the season, of course, because it's the first arc of the season, and has some good human drama. Good interaction between Victoria and the Doctor, showing the faults of man, greed, etc. So I enjoyed it. Definitely interesting. Next up, the Web of Fear. It introduces Colonel Lethbridge Stewart, a recurring character, so that's noteworthy. Second, it's just an interesting, good monster movie-like arc. Has some good twists, interesting villain, and it's just entertaining. And then Enemy of the World. Again, I just note this because I really liked seeing Mr. Troughton play the hero and the villain. Unfortunately, I think that was all I had. Yeah, because going down the rest of the list, Abominable Snowmen, it was very meh, but it did introduce the Great Intelligence, so maybe, but we get to see him in Web of Fear, so not as big a deal. Ice Warriors, honestly, they were just Monster of the Week. You could have replaced them with Cybermen or something else. It would have been just the same, so that's a meh. And then let's talk about the companion arcs. For the companion arcs, basically this is just for those who are interested in the companions on the TARDIS. Where does the story end for these characters? And, well, we have just the 2 arcs this season. The first being Fury from the Deep, which sees the departure of Victoria Waterfield, played by Deborah Watling. Basically, about the midpoint of this arc, she shows her concerns about, this is very dangerous. I do care about you, but I don't want to potentially risk my life because, Cybermen, Daleks, etc. And of course, and it's noteworthy because she joined because she really had no choice at the end of season 4. In that, she was left on the planet Skaro, her family was dead, and her only way off of the planet was with the Doctor and Jamie. So, it's understandable that she's like, I appreciate you guys helping me out, but can I get off the ride now? And with the arcs preceding this, let's see, Tomb of the Cybermen, Abominable Snowmen, and, that was 3, Ice Warriors all taking place in very rough, mountainous area. It's not really cool to say, hey, I'm going to just leave and live in the mountains now. That would be ridiculous. As well as Enemy of the World. Yeah, you didn't really have... You just helped depose a world dictator, so you're good, but it's still very dangerous. So I don't blame her for saying, hey, I can work on this rig with these guys that we've actually made some good friends with. As opposed to, I'll live in the mountains. And then Wheel of Space introduces the character of Zoe. She is an astrophysicist with a major in pure math. I really don't know what major in pure math means, but that's part of who she was. And basically, in the Wheel of Space, at several points, she's talking with superiors, and they're noting that while she has a lot of theoretical knowledge, in practice, she's somewhat lacking. Emergency situations, and she almost seems robotic. And I'm not saying she is, but I wouldn't be surprised to find out, hey, she's pretty much a robot. I honestly don't think she is. It's just being, trained and knowing astrophysics is a lot different than being, an EMT or somebody who's meant to handle crisis situations. So that wraps up the companion arcs. So we move on to... Oh, well, actually, really quick. Sorry. Because I forgot to mention... Well, let me start again. Now that we've talked about the companion arcs for companions leaving and joining, let's talk about the other noteworthy companion information. For instance, Colonel Lethbridge Stewart, played by Nicholas Courtney. Again, he was introduced in the Web of Fear, and he shows himself to be a capable military commander. He has a serious situation to deal with. He notes that the Doctor is obviously somebody with some knowledge that can potentially help out, but he also has some serious things to deal with, like the Yetis pretty much annihilating his force. And I can't wait to see more of him in later seasons. As I talked about with Victoria already, she joined up at the end of season 4 and left now in season 5. And her run was from episode 164 to episode 203. And what happened with her after she left Doctor Who? Well, just some general information. She was born January 2nd, 1948, and passed away June 21st, 2017. This is being made in May 2018, so that kind of stinks. Other noteworthy information, her father played the character of Travers in The Abominable Snowman and later in The Web of Fear. She also voiced Victoria in several Big Finish audiobooks for Doctor Who. Wrote her autobiography in 2010, sharing some of her experiences on Doctor Who. And she passed away after a brief bout with lung cancer. And then we have Zoe Harriet, played by Wendy Padbury. I'm going to put the name under. Again, she joined up in the Wheel of Space. She knows astrophysics very well and pure math. And, yeah, I really liked her character. Like, she had a good reason to join up with the Doctor and Jamie. She has all the practical knowledge. She has all the theoretical knowledge of astrophysics. But she definitely had that thirst for knowledge and for wanting to be more helpful and capable. So, obviously, adventuring with these two interesting characters who helped defeat the Cybermen would be appealing to her. And her character is very believable. Okay, everything's good so far. So, let's move on to final thoughts. Like I said before, I dubbed this the B Monster Movie arc. In that, for the most part, we had a lot of, Monster of the Week situations. Cybermen, Yetis, Seafoam. But, also, in some regards, it was kind of weak because we saw mind control coming up a lot. Cybermen, the Great Intelligence, the Seaweed. I don't know. It's fine, and there's no arcs that are like, oh my god, this was the worst arc ever. I regret watching it. But there are some that are definitely just, I don't care, and I want to get on to more interesting things. And I did talk about, what's noteworthy and interesting before. And I'll put them in the credits as well, just so everybody knows. And with that, I nervously say I am done talking about Season 5. Cool. Nothing's gone crazy or haywire or anything like that, so I think we're good. So, as always, everyone, have fun, stay safe, keep hydrated, and remember, every character has a story to tell. I'm Valiant Bradley James, character investigator. Peace. Cool. Nothing's gone crazy or haywire or anything like that, so I think we're good. So, we'll have to keep an eye on this. Perhaps we'll need to speak with this Mr. Valiant a bit more personally.